Hi, so my name is Cassandra, and I'm working on self-mentions in the English discipline. So my corpus encompasses two different journals. One of them is the Studies in English Literature and from 1500 to 1900, which is abbreviated as SEL, and the English Literary History, which is abbreviated ELH. And both of these journals are the high-impact journals that that were recommended to me when I talked to my English discipline advisor. And so the time range I chose for my corpus was from 2006 to 2017. And each of these journals every year publish 4 different issues based on the different seasons. And so I chose the winter issue of the article because this encompassed the most, there was the most overlap range between the two journals itself. So for my time range, I chose a total of, there were 24 articles that I looked at as part of my corpus. So looking at the corpus, the discourse feature that I chose to look at was self-mentions. So self-mentions are basically the use of personal pronouns by the author while writing their article. And the personal pronouns come in different forms and they include I and we. So that's the 2 forms I'm going to be looking at. The different forms of personal pronouns they serve different purposes in the research article itself, and each of the different forms have different effects on how the readers engage with the article and how the readers feel about the article itself. So the empirical evidence that I put down as an example are from the winter 2006 issue of SEL, and within this one article itself, we can see there's usage of both I in the personal pronoun and the we form of personal pronoun itself. And majority of the articles itself actually have use of both. And so I plan to look at the frequency of I and we usage in the different journals, and I plan to see if there's a difference between the frequency in the two journals of the two personal pronoun forms, and how that changes within between journals, and if the frequency differences between 2 and 3 journals can show that there's a pattern of favor English disciplines favoring one form of personal pronoun to the other. So my research question is, how does the use of different forms of self-mentions, I versus we, in English research articles affect the interaction between the author and the reader? And how does the use of personal pronouns help writers create their own identity and viewpoints? So my preliminary findings include different research articles I've looked at that dealt with self-mentions, and the first point was that self-mentions are used as a way for writers to engage the readers, and this was one of the main focus of many different secondary sources I've looked at. This includes Koo, who wrote 1999's, Kuhi and Elijah's 2016, and Thompson and Talas in 1995. Harwood published 2 articles in 2005 in 2 different journals that dealt with how authors use self-mentions to create their self-identity within the article itself, and how they use self-mentions to establish their viewpoints to the audience itself. Dobakti and Hassan 2017 also published a research article similar to Harwood's 2 articles. And from just looking at the corpus, I found that both forms of the personal pronouns were used in majority of the research articles itself, although the frequency between the 2 different forms are different, with the pronoun form of I used relatively more frequent than the use of we, and that the use of personal pronouns in SEL journal was higher than the personal pronoun in ELH.